Hello guys, and welcome to another Blender tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a simple shark animation in Blender using only 2 images and a video. So we're going to be using some projection modeling, just making this really basic shark. It doesn't have to look great from the sides, but we're only rendering this from the top anyway. And this is a quick and dirty result. So there's a lot of things like this that wouldn't be up to like industry standard, but this is just about making a fun little result with just a few pictures. And I'm going to go through the whole process, including the modeling. And as always, my file will be up on Patreon. You can check that in the description below. And it really goes a long way to support the channel here. So I'll see you guys in this tutorial and let's make this awesome result. So I'm going to put a link in the description below where you can download this video of some water and then also this image of a shark and also an image of the sand over here. So you're going to download those free using the links in the description. And then you're going to go onto your computer, and I've just created a folder on my desktop called Shark, and inside of there I placed these 3 elements: the shark, the sand, and the water video. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up a new scene in Blender, and what we're going to do, we're going to go into our top orthographic view by pressing 7, and let's just select everything and go X and delete. And what we're going to do is we're going to get that folder. So for me, that's on my desktop. And we're going to take our shark image on the top orthographic view. We're just going to drag it into the middle of our scene here. And then what we're going to do is we're now going to go Shift A, and we're just going to add in a cube again. And let's tab into edit mode. And what we're going to do is we're going to go S to scale that down about this much, about the width of the shark's head. Then we're going to tab back out. We're just going to select this image and just move it about here, and let's just rotate it slightly by pressing R, and roughly the size of the shark's head, something like that. So we've just kind of roughly straightened that out. We're now going to grab this cube. We're going to go into edit mode, and we're just going to select these verts over here at the front, and we're just going to go E to extrude, S to scale, and you can see what we're doing here. We're just trying to scale these faces or these verts up to the size of the shark, and I'm just going to move these here, scale them a little bit, and then I'm going to go E to extrude, R to rotate, S to scale a little bit, and we're just simply following the form of the shark here. I'm going to go E to extrude, S to scale, E to extrude, S to scale. This is pretty simple. I mean, like, you guys can, this is pretty like beginner friendly, very simple modeling going on here. We're just going to extrude, scale, move it, rotate if you have to, and then scale again. Let's just leave it here for now. And let's just tab into object mode again, and I'm going to go G, Z, and just move it up, just so it's not intersecting with our reference. And let's press 7 to go back to our top orthographic, tab back into edit mode, and obviously I am in wireframe at the moment while I'm working. I'm going to go Control R, add in a loop over here. Just double click and add it in. And then over here, I'm going to go Control R, double click. Then I'm going to press A to select everything. And I'm going to go to my smooth tool. And I'm just going to go and smooth it out, going to the top to make sure it looks okay. Okay, that's great. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to my move tool, just select these verts at the back, to select that face and go X, delete faces. And now we have an opening here. I'm just going to select those verts, and then I'm going to go E to extrude, S, X, and flatten it a little bit on the X, R to rotate, and I'm just going to extrude this and scale it along the X to flatten it, and I'm going to progressively extrude it to the back, and then extrude it, rotate it a bit, and then extrude it again. And then if you go into your right orthographic view by pressing 3 on the number pad, you can just select these and then enable proportional editing, and then go S, Z, and just scale it up on the Z while you roll your fall off. And then you can just select some of these verts and just kind of make this all look a little bit better. Okay, so I'm just going to move this out here, something like that, make it look like a fin. We're only going to be seeing it from the top, so this doesn't have to be 100%. So something like that is fine. And you could also select this edge over here and just go Control F and just go grid fill, just to fill it in, and then go S, X, and just flatten on the X a little bit. Now if you go to our top view, you can just select some of these verts here, and this is completely up to you how you want to do this, but I'm just going to grab some of that bottom verts and just kind of fan it out a little bit and try and get it to match up to the reference here a little bit, but don't go overboard with it. You can make this little extra fin there if you want. I'm not going to bother. The main thing we want to do now is model this fin over here. So we're going to go to our edge select mode. Let's turn off proportional editing. And let's select this bottom edge over here where the fin is. We're going to go Shift D to duplicate it, place it about here. Then go E to extrude, S to scale. And I'm just going to jump into wireframe so I can see this. Maybe rotate it a bit, then go E to extrude, S to scale. E to extrude, S to scale. And let's go one more time, S to scale. And then what we're going to do is we're going to give this a subdivision surface modifier. That's going to kind of smooth everything out. And at this point, we're just going to come in here, Control R, double click just to add in a loop, double G just to slide it, just to tighten that up. And let's just select this whole thing and just move it up a little bit till it's kind of inside of the shark. And I'm going to select this edge and just drag it in a bit. We just want that to be inside of our shark, like so. Nothing too complicated. Control R, roll in just 2 loops over here. And now that we have that, we're going to go Control L just to select the whole thing. E to extrude, right click to let go, and then Alt S and scale out along the normals. Now Control L, while we've got some geometry selected, that just selects the whole thing. And then we're going to go Shift D, X, move it over here. S, X, -1. Enter, and now we've inverted it, and we're just going to move this in over here, matching it up to the reference. And now we have those done. You could, if you wanted to, just select one of these, duplicate it, and just scale it down on the X, rotate it a bit, scale it, and just match it up to one of these fins at the back. And you may want to grab the proportional editing and just kind of change it to connected only, and just kind of match that up. But this is extra details you can do in your own time. I'm not going to get too into that. Might just move that thing down a little bit. And then duplicating it over here, SX -1, and that one I'll bring in to about here. You might have to actually rotate that one down a little bit, like so, just to make it match the reference, but really it's up to you how far you want to take this. Yeah, I'm going to add in a loop here, move it in a bit, maybe grab this edge. And then what we're going to do is just going to also just select some of these edges here, just scale them a bit. And let's just turn the subdivision cage on over here so we can see. And we just want to scale this till it matches our reference. And this looks more or less okay. I'm now going to tab out, and I'm going to go here and apply the subdivision surface modifier. I'm going to right click and go shade smooth. We now have a simple shark over here. And if we want to see this texture, all we have to do is give this a material, go new. Let's just call it shark. And let's go over to our base color and let's make that an image texture. And let's come to the drop down and make it that image we dragged in. And now what we have to do is go to UV editing, go to our top view, A to select everything, and then we're going to go U, and we're going to go project from view. So we've UV unwrapped it by pressing U and projecting from view. We can now press Z and go material preview. And now you have to come over here and select all of this geometry. And you can go S to scale it up, G to move it, and R to rotate. And we're just trying to match it up over here on the projected view to our shark. And get it roughly in place, and then you can use proportional editing in this UV editing workspace just to move things around. And you want to make sure that over here you're looking at things, making sure that they match up to our model. So I'm going to drag these, and you can take your time with this as much as you want. Let's just actually grab that background image, the reference, and let's just press M, new collection. Let's just call it junk and go OK. And let's just turn that off in the render and in the view. So now we only have our shark here in this main collection, which is currently called cube. Let's just call it shark. Okay, and like I said, this is completely up to you in this edit mode to match up as much of this as you can by dragging these verts around. But that's something you guys can do in your own time. I'm just doing my best here to kind of make it match. And there we have it. You could also model this top fin here, but that kind of has a shadow. But at the moment, because this is going to be underwater, We're not going to be worrying too much about it. This is just a rough, quick and dirty shark that we're only going to really see from the top. So now let's go back to our layout. Let's make sure to save this somewhere. I'm going to just save it in that folder I created called shark, and go ahead and save it. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go Shift A in our top orthographic, add in a plane, and let's have a look at that sand image that we downloaded. It's roughly this shape. So I'm just going to tab into edit mode here. I want to scale this about that much, S to scale it up. It only has to be rough. Let's go new and let's call this material sand. And let's go to our base color, make it an image texture and go open. And let's get that sand image we downloaded. And now if you go to UV editing, and over here you go make sure in your material preview, over here you can match this up. And this looks more or less okay. It doesn't really matter if it's not exactly this shape, it should look fine. But that's what we want. So let's go back to our layout. This is going to material preview. And this should be on the ground. But our shark should be over here because it's going to kind of swim over it. And just make sure yours is roughly this size to the shark. I'm just going to go with that. So now that we have our shark, we have our sand, let's bring in our video. So the way we're going to do that, we're just going to duplicate this sand and bring it up. So it's going to be above the shark, like so. Let's bring that shark down just a little bit. We're going to grab that and let's just go get rid of that material. Let's create a new one and call it water. And let's go over to our base color and let's get an image texture. Let's go to open and let's get that video and go open image. And now we have that video. And we're going to come here to the frames and let's make the frames 120. And let's start at frame 1, which it is. We're also going to come here to the end frame value and make it 120. Drag it up a little bit. And now if we press the space bar, we're not seeing anything, so we need to go to auto refresh and cyclic. And now if we go to frame 1 and hit the space bar, we should see this animation is running, okay? So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna work on some of these materials. And for now, let's just drag our shark here in the middle because we wanna kind of see that as well. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go to our render engine and we're gonna change it from EV to cycles. If you do have a GPU, make sure to use it. If you don't, just stick to CPU. And we're gonna go down to our samples under the render here. And let's change that to 80 in this case. You can set it to higher, but because we're rendering cycles, I want it to be a little bit quicker. So what we're gonna do is we're also gonna go to our world settings. And this is optional. So if in your case, you can just come here and change it to sky texture. And that'll kind of like add, if you press Z and go rendered, that adds its own kind of like sky lighting, and you can set that down to kind of like 0.5. For me personally, I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna get a HDRI. You can get plenty of those on the internet, they're free. So I'm just gonna get one that I do have in my library. And there it is, I'm just gonna grab it. Like I said, it's optional, but what you do wanna do is you wanna go Shift A, you wanna add in a light, add in a sunlight and go G, Z, move it up. And then come here and under your light settings, let's give it a strength of about 3. And now if you go Z and you go rendered, you can see there we have our lighting. Now the thing is, we want to see through our glass or our water over here. So we're going to go over to our shading workspace. And over here, we're going to do a few things with our nodes. We have this water material selected. And earlier we added in the image texture here, but it automatically added it in here. So what we're going to do, we're going to move this texture and we're going to go Shift A, search and type in color. We're going to get a color ramp node and place it on here. But we're going to take this and plug it into the normal, like so. And we're going to go Shift A, search, and we're also going to type in bump. And we're going to get a bump node, place it over here. And we want to make sure that this color is fitting into the height over here. And then going into the normal here. So you can see we have the image texture into the factor, color of the color ramp into the bump, height, and that normal goes into the normal of our principled. We're then going to take this roughness almost all the way down to 0. And we're going to take this transmission all the way up to 1. And we're going to come to the IOR and make it 1.33. And now if we go to our top view and we go Z and we go rendered, we should be able to see through, and we can now see our shark. But this bump here is way too strong. So let's take that down to something much lower. And in fact, on top of that, let's just go, if you have your node wrangler enabled, you can just go to Edit, Preferences, under your add-ons, type in here a node, and just make sure you enable the node wrangler. So if you hold in Control and Shift and click on your color ramp, and you now go Z and rendered, it's automatically put that into a viewer node. So you can now come over here and adjust that value and just see this node without it passing through that principled shader. So we're gonna go with something like this. Let's make that more gray. You can mess around with these values, and let's go Control Shift, click on the principled shader again to plug it in. And that's looking a bit better, but let's just also take the strength way down, like so. And we also want to take our light here, and we just want to rotate it and move it off to the side so it's coming in at an angle. So we go to the top, we're going to now see that. We don't want it directly above. Okay, and you can mess around as much as you want with the strength here and with these black and white values, but that's just going to add some distortion to the water. And it's also going to be animated because it's using that video that we imported. But let's go to our top view and let's go Shift A. Let's add in a camera on our top orthographic. G, Z, let's move it up, and then R, Z, 90 and hit enter. And now if we hit 0 to go to camera view, we can see we are seeing this from the top. And you can zoom out, but don't zoom past the point where you can't see your sand. And if you go Control B and drag over your camera with Control B, you can limit the render to this camera. But another thing we want to do is we don't want these shadows being cast from this plane. So we can grab this box, tab into edit mode, and just go E to extrude and Z, bring it up, just to where it touches the water, and then go X and delete faces. And now if we go back into a camera and we press Z and we go rendered, we should see this. Now what we're going to do, with our shark still there in the middle, we're going to save and we can go render image, and we're just going to see what this looks like. And there you can see we now have this rendered, and when this is animated we'll actually see all of these ripples in the water, and we'll see our shark actually moving. You can add as much to this as you want, but that's going to take more time, and I don't want to make this tutorial too long, so we're going to leave it at this for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to close this render window, going to go back to the layout, and so we can see our shark. I'm just going to select this water. I'm going to go to the object properties, and I'm going to go down to the viewport display. I'm going to go down to the display as and make it wire. So we still have it here as an object here, but if we press Z and go rendered, we can still see it rendered, which is really cool. But what we want to do here, we want to be able to select our shark, and we have 120 frames here. So let's come to frame 1. And in frame 1, we're going to go G, Y, and move it outside the box. And let's enable our automatic keying, and we're going to go I and insert a location. And let's go to frame 120 and then go G, Y, and it should automatically add in a key because we have the auto keying enabled, and just leave it over there. We can now turn that off, select both of these, and then go T and just make the fall off type linear for the interpolation. So it's just one linear movement without any easing in or easing out, like that. That's good, but if we kind of look at our fish at the moment, our shark, it looks really stiff. So what we're going to do, we're just going to tab in, go to our object data properties, or this one over here, and under the shape keys, we're just going to give it a basis, and then click again, and this is our first shape key. And let's take the value up to 1, and then tab into edit mode. And let's make sure connected only is turned off, but we still want our proportional editing. And we're just going to select some verts here at the back, like so. And we're going to go G, Y, and we're going to roll our middle mouse button. Actually, not G, Y, just G by itself. We're going to go G, roll our middle mouse button, and then drag this over to the side like this to make it look like it's turned. And we're also just going to grab some of these fins and just slightly adjust them like so. Okay, and we're going to grab these fins, I'm going to rotate them a little bit, and then G to move them forward. Grab this one here, rotate it, G to move it forward. And let's just also just take it up a little bit, like so. And let's now grab the head and just slightly tilt it all and rotate it a little bit this way, just a little bit, not too much. And now what we have is this value slider. When we go back into object mode, that looks like this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to just drag this to about frame 5, and with a value of 0 here, we're going to hit this little button to add in a keyframe. We want to come up to about 15, and we're going to drag this value all the way up to 1 and then click here again. And now between 5 and 15, we're going to have this with the tail. We're then just going to select these two keyframes and go Shift D and move them up to about this point here. So the gap is almost even to the gap between these two. And then go Shift R just to repeat that action all the way to the end. And now we're going to have this, like so. Now what you could do, you can select all those keyframes that you just created. And what you can do is you can always come here to frame 6 and then just go S down here and scale them, or scale them down even, really depends on what you're trying to do. And they can go a little bit faster like this. So it's completely up to you how you want to space them. You could also, in your animation curves, just add a noise modifier. I tried this, but it kind of didn't work that well for whatever reason, so I just kind of did it like this. Okay, that seems about okay, so I'm just gonna grab 2 more, just duplicate them, and that's fine. So now we have our shark swimming. And if we now go to our render settings, we can also come here and enable motion blur. And let's just come to about a frame like this. Make sure to save, and let's go render. And let's render that image and see what we have. And this is the result we have. And it looks like it's smudgy, but really what's happening here is because we have the ripples in the wave, and it's kind of distorting whatever's under the water, which is kind of what we'd see in real life. So you can try different kind of water water videos that you get on the internet, and kind of try that technique. This is kind of a quick and dirty result. This is kind of breaking a lot of the rules. There's a lot of things here that are not quite realistic, but this is a kind of beginner, quick and dirty tutorial. We want to get a relatively okay result with very basic effort and input. And that was kind of the point here. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. And by the way, if you want to render this out, as always, just go to your render settings. You can change your format to FFmpeg video. You can change your encoding container to an MP4. And you can save, and then also just pick a destination, of course, like your desktop, and then you can go render and render the animation, and it'll render that out for you. But I've covered that a lot of times, so go ahead, render it out. I've already done that, so I'm not going to do it again, but this is the result, as you can see. And I really hope you guys have enjoyed this. I will upload the final files to my Patreon, and thank you for watching.